Hello dear viewers and welcome to the radio television of Djibouti. Here are our major stories for tonight. A meeting took place between the President Conference of the National Assembly. Djiboutians have followed the final of the World Cup won by France against Croatia. Under the acting chairmanship of the Honorable Ilmi of COIs and pursuing Law 21, paragraphs 1 and 2 of the Rules of Procedures, the Conference of Presidents of the National Assembly was held on Monday, 16 July, in the premises of the Parliament to set the agenda and the date of a special meeting. At this conference, the government was represented by Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed and the Minister of Defense Ali Hassan Badon, the second Vice President of the National Assembly representation, the members of the Bureau, the chairperson of the standing committees and parliamentary groups also took part in this meeting. The Conference of Presidents has dealt first of all with the transmission to the appropriate standing committee of the pending bills, namely Bill number 16 ratifying the loan agreement signed between the Republic of Djibouti and the African Development Bank, tabled in Parliament on June 26. Bill number 17 ratifying the loan agreement signed between the Republic of Djibouti and the World Bank, tabled in Parliament on June 26 as well. And draft law number 18 on the ratification of the loan agreement between the Republic of Djibouti and the Fund for Economic and Social Development, tabled in Parliament on June 26. And finally, the conference then discussed the date of the public session dedicated to the debate which will be held during the week. Still in the National Assembly, under the chairmanship of the Honorable Abdurrahman Awali Yassin, the Foreign Affairs Committee met on Monday, July 16th for the examination of the following texts. Bill number 16 ratifying the loan agreement signed between the Republic of Djibouti and the African Development Bank, tabled in Parliament on June 26. Bill number 17 ratifying the loan agreement signed between the Republic of Djibouti and the World Bank, and Bill number 18 ratifying the loan agreement signed between the Republic of Djibouti and the Fund for Economic and Social Development. The meeting was attended by the Minister of Finance and Economy, Ilyas Mousdouali, with the participation of the Minister of Energy for Natural Resources, Younis Ali Gedi. And at the end of a constructive debate, the ratification projects mentioned above received the favorable opinion of the commissioners for its transmission and adoption in the public session. Continuing with the national news, the Ministry of Economy and Finance in charge of industry organized a meeting of information and consultation with the leaders of the banking and financial sectors with a view to boost and ensure that this banking sector can be the engine of growth. The Minister in his introduction insisted that the government undertake a diagnostic study on the banking sector to bring it in line with economic developments in the country. Also, on all the obstacles that hinder the development of a dynamic banking sector will be lifted, and thus Djibouti will strengthen the credibility of the banking place. In addition, the Minister introduced the new partial credit guarantee fund of Djibouti with commercial banks and other institutions such as the FDED. The commercial banks and the FDED appreciated this initiative of the Minister of Economy and Finance for this meeting of dialogue and exchanges and welcomed the presentation of the partial guarantee fund. The Minister of Muslim Affairs, Mr. Mumin Hassan Berri, presided today at the ceremony of laying the foundation stone of a great mosque and a reading center and cultural animation called Clack within neighborhood 7. The ceremony saw the presence of several members of the government, including the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Munaim, the Minister Delegate for Decentralization, Mr. Hamadou Ahmed Aramis, the Minister Delegated for Trade, the Minister of State of Housing Musa, as well as the Mayor of Djibouti. This event also saw the presence of the Director General of the Diwan Waqf, Mr. Almi Noor Jama, and the Director General of ADDS, Mr. Mahdi, as well as many notables and young people from the neighborhood. This project is the result of close collaboration with the State Secretariat for Social Affairs and the Djiboutian Agency for Social Development, which provides funding and architectural design of the works. In a brief intervention, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs said that this is a breakthrough for the residents of the neighborhood 7. They will therefore have to ensure, she said, that construction work takes place in the best conditions. Once the work is completed, these two structures, the most important one on the other, will be under their responsibility, she said. The Minister of Culture, Mumin Hassan Bere, has for its part underlined that this project will allow the population of Neighborhood 7 to acquire a new mosque and access to services offered by the CLAC by creating a place of worship, exchange and recreation, promoting the flourishing of cultural expressions. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, received this morning at his office the Ambassador of the United States of America to Djibouti, Larry Anglais. In the presence of his close associates, U.S.-Djiboutian relations have only become stronger since the establishment of a U.S. military base in the country in 2002. Also, since his arrival in Djibouti in November 2017, the ambassador has multiplied his contacts to get acquainted with the priorities of the government and establish a timetable in consequence. The ambassador during this visit reaffirmed his willingness to accompany the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports in promoting and development of youth, and that according to his findings, this ministerial department was one of those with which the goals correspond, he said. And for the Secretary of State, who said he was delighted with this visit, the visit helped to lay the foundations for future collaboration between the two institutions, especially as the English language was becoming more important in Djibouti, the only country in East Africa to speak French. Also in this context, the Secretary of State mentioned the establishment of a program of learning the English language in the community centers. As usual, Djiboutians were eagerly following the final match of the 2018 World Cup last night. It was in a festive atmosphere that the young people followed the final of the World Cup on giant screens installed in all the community centers of the capital, but also in those of the interior regions. And also the Djiboutian youth gathered at the King Fahad complex in Belbela to not miss this international event. This action, initiated by the State Secretary of Youth and Sports in accordance with the roadmap of the President of the Republic, as part of the program of youth development, and at the same time the Group Nail and Bouadi Mall organized a live broadcast on giant screen installed in the Bouadi Mall. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, accompanied by his colleagues in Justice and Deserterization, Mumin Ahmed Sheikh and Hamadou Mohamed Aramis, as well as Barbara Manzi, a resident coordinator of the United Nations System and UNDP representative in Djibouti, followed the match live with several senior executives, employees and clients of the Bouadi Mall. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports thanked the Nail Group and the Bouadi Mall for this great initiative and encouraged them to participate more in the promotion and development of Djiboutian youth. He finally congratulated Les Bleus, who showed in Moscow an impressive determination to beat Croatia 4-2 goals and win their second title of world champion. And one of the members of the government in an interview expressed his satisfaction of the World Cup result today, Djibouti Bouadi Mall. He said they have animated well just for Djiboutians who are watching this World Cup final. And you can't imagine the reaction, he said, how they felt as France defeated Croatia 4-2 in the 2018 World Cup final. And so I thank the Bouadi group who made it possible this task for this big screen that all Djiboutians could watch easily. France becomes champion of the World Cup for the second time. France won the second World Cup in history after the coronation of 1998, beating Croatia 4-2 in the final of the World Cup 2018 Sunday in Moscow. Let's hear it from Mohamed Aden for more details.
The front page of the press, Monday, July 16, the victory of France in the World Cup football, the euphoria of players and supporters, the tears of Croats and the pride of a generation of French, proud of their team. Everywhere in France, it is euphoria, an eternal happiness. Headline is to the newspaper team, a nod to his once of in 1998 for eternity. Faced with a very competitive team from Croatia, France did not give up. She disappointed in the first half, but was able to climb to the highest. The head in the star rejoices the Parisien. It was a victory strange and brightly continues his side liberation, which was offered for the Blues to the end. In front, the Croats are obviously disappointed, but the press pays homage to Luka Modric's team. It is you, our God, says Vicente List. No matter the controversy of the match, the use of video referring that may have changed the dynamics of the match, the Croatians have offered their fans an unforgettable performance. In France, many vibrated during this final. This is particularly the case of dozens of migrants gathered in a shelter in Paris. France 24 met the team. Mbappé Mtiti, these are my children, exclaimed the mother, recalling that the both players are Cameroonian origin.
And as for Croatia, Modric disappointed but proud. The defeat for 2 was initially difficult to digest for the Croats, but this country of 4 million inhabitants was able to console itself with the coronation of Luka Modric as best player of the tournament. While Croatia has not yet scored its second goal, many supporters are already making their way home. They have their faces defeated. Very few agreed to speak, with the exception of Luka. People expected more. He said, "We are disappointed. Our national team has achieved a feat." The majority of fans still remained at the final whistle. They applauded their team with their heads held high. The announcement of Luka Modric as the best player in the World Cup ends up warming hearts, and soon the party invaded the streets of Zagreb. We are happy to be in second place. They said it is extraordinary for our country like ours. There is no disappointment to have. The party will continue until late at night. Along with the Croatians, many foreign supporters came to accompany the Red Mile until the end of this dream, and that of a small country hosting the final of the biggest sports competition in the world. Still in the World Cup, Putin passes the baton to the Emir of Qatar for 2022. More in this video.
A World Cup chases the order. This Sunday, Russian President Vladimir Putin passed the torch, the ball in the case, to the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who will organize the next World Football. FIFA President Gianni Infantino attended the official ceremony held at the Kremlin in Moscow. The Russian president said he would share his experience with the successor's host country. FIFA President Gianni Infantino announces the date of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The next meeting with all football fans is set in 4 years from November 21 to December 18. Gianni Infantino also said the championship from France, England, Spain have already been informed of this decision. He added to that this is a good decision because you cannot play football in June and July in Qatar. Remember that in summer temperatures in this area can rise to 14. Organizing the World Cup under such heat is just unthinkable. Hence is the choice of these days certainly unusual but quite understandable. Moreover, even in November, temperatures in Qatar are around 28 to 30.
And now let's get back to the national news. Algeria will host from 18 to 28 July the 3rd edition of the African Youth Games organized by the Association of National Olympic Committees of Africa, a competition dedicated to young people under 18 years old, which will bring together the 15 countries of Africa. To this end, the second wave of Djiboutian delegation composed of 36 athletes from the following 8 disciplines: taekwondo, table tennis, judo, karate, athletics, canoeing, football, swimming, and dozen technical staff therefore flew yesterday to participate in this 3rd edition. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Mr. Hassan Mohamed Kamil, and the President of the National Olympic and Sports Committee of Djibouti, Mrs. Aisha Garad, well keen to encourage young people for their participation and urge them to give the best of themselves to win victories and raise the national colors ever high. The European Union organized this morning in the public garden, with the collaboration of the Association Caravane du Livre, an exhibition of books entitled Lire au Parc. Numerous bookshops took part in this exhibition of books, among them that of the Mayor of Djibouti and the Victor Hugo bookstore. The objective of this event is to sensitize the Djiboutian population to practice reading and to admire the taste of reading, which has a crucial role for the reinforcement of the general knowledge and to give the opportunity to discover the artisanal word objects. The event that began earlier this morning will continue until 8 p.m. which a rich animation program such as workshops in animations around the book on art, reading sessions, stories, drawings, paintings, songs and games, competitions with rewards of the winners, and finally book exhibitions and sales of many handicrafts with discounts of 22 or 40%. And moving on now to the rest of the world, former President Obama returns to Kenya before his trip to South Africa. More with Hindi Ibrahim.
Obama arrived his father's native Kenya on Sunday, where he paid a courteous calls on President Uhuru Kenyatta and main opposition leader Raila Odinga. On Monday, he flew to the west of the country, where under extremely tight security he paid a visit to the home of his step-grandmother Zara Obama in the village of Kongelo. He was accepted to meet a number of members of his extended family before launching the Soti coup, solely for strong voice, center step up by his half-sister Umu Obama. After in the media last week, Uma said the state-of-the-art center will give local youth access to books, internet and sporting activity.
In Syria, the regime progresses against the rebels in the south. More in this video.
Syrian-backed forces supported by Russia made progress on Monday against rebels in south of the country, gaining control of several localities. And state media said Bashar al-Assad's power launched an offensive on June 28 in the southern province of Dera, forcing the rebels to accept a so-called reconciliation accord sponsored by Moscow. Similar to a capitulation almost 3 weeks later, some isolated insurgent group, however, refused this option, and the regime used forces to recapture localities under their control. Thanks to the deadly negotiations and bombing, Damascus has taken over 18% of the province of Dera and now target the neighboring region of Quneitra, which borders the Golan Heights, most of which is annexed by Israel. In western Dera, the regime's forces have taken over the localities of Al-Hara, Samlins, Al-Tiha and Zimrin. The director of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights told AFP, Rami Abdulrahman, with the exception of the town of Tiha recaptured by forces, the other 3 were ceded by the rebels under the agreement, which provided for the abandonment by fighters of heavy and medium artillery, as well as a return of state institutions according to the OSDH.
First one-on-one meeting between Trump and Putin in Helsinki's explanations.
After 2 hours of closed-door talks, the two leaders went into a walking lunch with their senior advisors. Speaking Arab, Mr. Putin said it was time to discuss difficult multinational issues. Relations between Russia and the West were severely strained by Moscow's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Russia is also accused of meddling in the 2016 U.S. election, a claim it's strongly denounced. Speaking before Monday's much anticipated summit, Mr. Trump said he hoped for an extraordinary relationship and blamed U.S.-Russia tensions on previous administrations.
Children rescued from the flood in Thailand's cave thanked their rescuers in a video broadcast by the Ministry of Health. Let's watch this video.
Children rescued from the flooded Thai cave thanked their rescuer in a video broadcast by the Ministry of Health. The 12 teenagers and their coach learned this weekend that Thai diver Saman Kunan had died while trying to supply oxygen to the cave chamber where the children were stuck for 18 days. The authorities have released a photograph where the children pay tribute to the former divers of the Thai Navy. The youth rescue lasted 3 days and was organized by a team of Thai and foreign divers. Australian divers revealed that they have previously obtained diplomatic immunity to protect themselves in case of failure. One of the divers also confirmed that during the evacuation through the flooded bowels.
Thank you for watching us on RTD channel. This is it for this news and have a good night.